It's lovely to see you all here. I hope wherever you are in the country you have a great day of sunshine and pleasantness outside, but I know that it is a mixed bag across the country at the moment, so sorry if you've got rain, we can't help you, but hopefully we'll bring a smile to your face with what we envisage will be another joyful Drake music webinar. We're doing lots of lovely things today, and I believe, Cassie, you ready to start?
Yes, I am. Hello, hello. It's good to see you.
Hello,
Hello. It's time to
start.
start. We can all say we've got a
Webinar
webinar
today.
today.
Hello, hello, hello.
So welcome everybody to today's webinar on inclusive communication. We hope you enjoyed that little Makaton song composed by Miss B. Hubble herself. My name is Cassie Girling. It's good to see you again. I am a mixed race woman in my 30s, sitting in front of lots of technology, and I've got Drake music above my head and of course my very special DM t-shirt on. Today's session is all about inclusive communication, and we will be introducing different tools that we can all use within our practice to enhance our communication. So I just want to introduce you to the other DM people in the room. Miriam, would you like to say hello and give us a little audio description of yourself?
Hello, my name is Miriam. I'm a Black woman in my 30s. I have a round afro and I'm wearing a stripy t-shirt, and I will be on tech support today.
Thanks, Miriam. Ben?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Ben. I am a male with short dark brown hair, clean shaven, no headphones, and I've got some cane brakes behind me in my background.
Thank you. And we've also got Rachel here today. Could you introduce yourselves for us, Rachel?
Hi, my name's Rachel. I'm a mixed race female in her 30s, wearing a black t-shirt, sitting in front of a white wall.
Thank you. Rachel is doing BSL for us today. And we also have Eleanor on captions. So let's kick it off with the slides.
Thanks, Miriam.
Thank you so much, Miriam. If you could move on to the next slide, that would be great. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to do a quick audio description of myself as well. I'm B. I'm a white woman in my 30s with brown hair, and I've got a blue sheet hung up behind me. But why? We'll find out later. So our topic today is inclusive communication, and I started thinking when we were planning this about that thing that everyone says, oh, it's only 7%, when we communicate. When we're talking, only 7% of that communication is verbal communication. And I thought, where's that from? Where is that from? And what is that? So I did a little Google, and I realised that it's from this man, Dr. Merahobian's book, Silent Messages. I mean, whether this is right, wrong, more we can do, whether this is right or wrong or whatever, it doesn't really matter. I mean, lots of people dispute this very firmly, as I discovered in my brief sortie across the internet. So it doesn't really matter, but it is a really interesting place to start from when we think about our communication with different mixed groups, whoever we're working with, and in fact, whether with young people, with adults with additional needs, or just with our colleagues as well. So I thought it was quite an interesting place to start. So the theory is that 7% of our communication is verbal, 38% of it is tone of voice. I wonder what you're getting from me now. You can put something in the chat if you like. And 55% is body language. Of course, over Zoom, this is a little harder to monitor, but I think it's a really interesting place to start from. But as the slide says, is there more we can do? It's not just about our verbal communication, our tone of voice and our body language. We'd really like to explore today the different things one can do in a space, both with yourself and also with the things around you. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, and I hope we touch on some things that will be useful to you, or that chime with what you're doing already, as I'm sure many of you are. Thanks, Miriam.
Thank you, Bea. So yeah, here is a list of inclusive communication tools. You may have seen Bea and myself use some of them in the beginning of today's session. The first one that we used was Makaton, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with. Makaton is a language program that uses symbols, signs, and speech to enable people to communicate. It supports the development of communication skills such as attention and listening, comprehension, memory, recall, and organization of language and expression. We would suggest, to get to grips further with Makaton, to engage with them on their website. You can kick this off really easily, perhaps with your teams that you work with. At Drake Music, within our weekly team meetings, we use the Makaton Sign of the Week. They have a really great YouTube channel where each week they put out a sign of the week. And we've all been learning together Makaton, and it's a really good tool that we've been using more now that everything's online, and is really useful to use on Zoom. So that's Makaton. We also use sign names. And a sign name is a sign that is used to uniquely identify a person, and it usually tells you something about the person's personality or interests. So my sign name is this, Cassie, and that's because I am a singer and I've got a little bit of attitude, so I just threw that in there as well. Bea, what's your sign name? Can you show us your sign name?
Yeah, absolutely. I love yours. It's so deeperish. I mean, yeah, it's brilliant. Mine is this, because I always feel like I'm running between lots of different things, and I'm quite a hyperactive person generally, so it's that kind of running stance at the as if we're at the beginning of a race. It's a really useful thing to think about, and it doesn't have to be the same every day as well. It's something that you can be really fluid with. Some people, especially instrumental teachers, feel very safe having their sign name perhaps as their main instrument, but maybe it's something that tells the world a bit more about yourself, like a movement or a hobby, baking, for example. And again, maybe it's different on different days. Maybe your sign name after a particularly heavy Thursday is this, because actually you're quite tired. There's a lot of fun to be had with it, particularly I suppose when working with a group of young people. You could use that as a really nice well-being check with everyone. How's everyone feeling today? So we do actually have a little song for this as well.
We do. Are you ready?
I am.
1, 2, 3, and what's
your sign today? What's your sign today? I'll watch and learn from you. So we invite you now to take a minute and think about what your sign name is. We would love to see some of these towards the end of the webinar if we have time. So we won't put anyone on the spot just now, but have a think about what your sign name is, and we'd love to have a moment at the end where we can share those round and perhaps copy them back to the other participants. So how are you feeling today? And let us know.
Another tool for communication, if you could go one slide backwards, please, Miriam, that would be great, and this seems really, really obvious, but it's something that can easily slip. It's speaking slowly. I often speed up if I'm getting really excited about something or if I'm getting nervous. But yeah, speaking slowly is really, really important. So today we have Eleanor on captions. And the great thing about having worked on Zoom over the past year is that it has really forced me to start thinking about the pace of my speech, because we are engaging with captioners who are typing what we're saying as we're saying it. So a little personal goal for myself is when I go back into face-to-face provision and facilitation, I'm going to imagine that Eleanor is next to me attempting to caption what I'm saying. So yeah, speaking slowly. Another one is clothing. And now this is a bit of an interesting one, but if you imagine if you were to wear something that's really bright and heavily patterned, it could be a sensory overload for some of the young people that we work with. So yeah, think about your clothing, wearing neutral clothing, and yes. Let's move on to the next slide. Thank you, Miriam.
Thanks, Cassie. Cheers, Miriam. Yeah, so just a little bit of thought about your space and your room setup. These are things that, you know, sometimes we can't do anything about these, but if we can, it's good to think about them, and it's good to be able to ask questions of the places we're working in as well. And, you know, if there's any opportunity for fundamental things to be changed, like a light that repeatedly hums, or an air conditioning unit that won't stop. That was a very disturbing feature of one school that I've worked in before, because the sensor was continually being tripped by us. So we got the sensor taken away, no fan, much better session, great. So room setup is great. Have a think about the way and the setup that you're in. Maybe light-wise, you're better off, rather than being perhaps against a window with the light coming in behind you, maybe you're better to change the orientation of a room so that you're lit from the side, or standing on the opposite side to the window. Just little things like that can make a really huge difference. Also thinking about sound as well. When your session is it going to cross over with perhaps bells going in schools for lunchtime, that sort of thing. Anything that might distract, good idea to have a think about it. So that's kind of thinking about room setup. So I'm going to give you a bit of an example now based on a session that I did recently online. Props can be really great and really useful. And I was thinking about this idea of building even more sort of 4D, more complete picture of work that you're doing. So I'd like to use the example today of the sea and the sea, and quite specifically pirates, which is a great topic, of course, which we can all work with. But thinking about that, what could I bring to that session to make us feel, not just because we were singing about the sea with music, but make us really feel like we were there, you know, with different sounds. So thinking about props. I've put a blue background behind me today. It's not very high tech, it's a duvet. But you know, that's okay, that works super well as well. Oh, sorry Miriam, can we go back a slide? Thank you. Yeah, oh sorry Miriam, you're having a moment, sorry about the slides. Doesn't matter, thank you. Easily done. Yeah, so thinking about props, I was thinking, okay, right, what can I do? Can I add to my space to make it more sea-like? Right, okay, blue background, that seems good. What about the soundscape? What about what's going on? Oh, well, perhaps a bottle of water to pass around and shake to get that really lovely watery sound, get that idea in there. What about what I look like? Now, we've talked about clothing being important, but what about some key props to turn me from sensible webinar bee into hasty pirate bee? There we go, quick stripy shirt, quick addition of a scarf, removal of webinar earrings, and instead the application of a hearty-sized Claire's accessory earring. And there we are. Also, my little friend here, Parrot. And there you have it, ready to be any kind of pirate there. And that would be great, you know, as a visual cue, particularly for learners with additional needs. You know, a little bit of prop work can go a long way. I also have some ship's biscuits here for the sound of, you know, what people might eat as well. So not just the whole thing, but also, you know, thinking about music. Maybe a bit of a sailor's hornpipe as well. Why not? It can end up feeling like a bit of a ragtag and a bit of an extra thing to get ready, but it's great for really immersing people in your space and really thinking, okay, what makes a bigger picture? Not just that we're going to sing a song about the sea today, a song about pirates. We're going to be on a real boat today, and I'm going to make it live with this. Maybe a tray of sand to pass around as well. So you get a real sensory element there. Maybe a spray bottle of water and some salt for the saltiness of the sea. Loads of little things that would just create a deeper picture for people about where they are. You could mess with the lighting as well if you were going into a storm. Perhaps turn all the lights off, plunge yourself into darkness, and have a storm that way as well. So I've got all these addendums now. Not maybe practical for all the time, but a parrot is great for that sometimes. Yeah, so can we go back to the slides, please, Miriam? Thanks so much. So just thinking about your space and how you can make it more inclusive. Sometimes signing the song and everything else is a really good start, but some sensory additions are really good as well to give, again, that extra depth. They can be really fun as well for a class or a group to find. Perhaps if you know that you're going to do a session about the jungle next week, you could ask people to bring their favourite jungle item from home to bring in, perhaps a monkey cuddly toy, you know, a snake, whatever they've got, and have a think about working sensory that way. So it's a really nice way to get people thinking beforehand as well about what you might be delivering in a session. And that leads us quite nicely on to our last point on this slide, which is visual lesson plans. So I'm sure lots of you have come across this idea. They are really used quite heavily in specialist schools when it comes to particularly allowing students with on the autism spectrum to know what's coming next. But they're really useful in all cases, actually, I think, and also a really nice tool to take away the verbal chat and move you more into a visual way of learning, which can be really helpful again for some learners. So our next slide is a little lesson plan that I drew very quickly. Now I've drawn it very quickly on purpose because I wanted to make a point that even though it's horrible drawing on an iPad, we'll still all know what it is. This is for anyone like me who is artistically challenged. So I just wondered if you could take a second now to have a look at our slide and then pop in the chat what you think is happening in this session from my deeply artistic depiction. So yeah, take a second, have a look, and give us a little rundown of what you think is going on there. Marvellous. Thanks, Caroline and Hannah. Quick off the mark there. Excellent. And yes, absolutely. Yes, Jen. Brilliant. Yeah, totally. Say hello. Do some playing. Have a listen. And then leave. It's really that simple. I know that there's thanks, Steve. I know that there's a feeling sometimes that if you commit to a lesson plan like that, you know, some of our sessions we really feel go with the flow is a super important part of those, because oh no, you know, we might run out of time, we might not want to do listening, it might not be appropriate today. The thing is even if you have a plan here and you run out of time or something doesn't really want to be done and then that's stressing people out, even if you just touch on it just for 10 seconds, tiny bit of listening, okay, it's happened, right, that's fine, and now we can go back to class. that's absolutely fine. That will satisfy many of the learners who need these things then to happen in that order, and they will still be reassured by having the order. It can take away an awful lot of anxiety for students, both disabled and non-disabled sometimes, to really know what's going to come on in a session, and perhaps they could help you draw the symbols for you to use in this as well. So again, a really nice way of interacting with them and co-producing these inclusive methods. Great, thanks so much, Miriam. We can go to the next slide now. So it's just a few final things from us to say before we hand you over to wonderful Ben. Basically, thinking about music being everything of what we do. Adding rhythm and pitch to instructions. So, for example, let's get the ukuleles, let's get the ukuleles, and then we're getting the ukuleles, and when we've got them, we can all join in ba, ba, with the beat or the rhythm on said ukuleles. It's a really nice way of doing it. Simple signing songs like we've just done. Looking forward, by the way, don't think we've forgotten, to seeing all of your sign names later on in the session. Having songs to frame the start and the end. Now, sometimes people tend to use the same hello and goodbye song, which is great, but I think thinking about having a different one for your hello and goodbye is really good, because then you have a difference. You know, your hello song means something else then to your goodbye song. It's setting people up and giving them as much preparation for change happening as you possibly can. So if possible, give yourself a different goodbye song to your hello one, so it's really clear to everyone that that is the end of the session. And you could, as the last point says here, co-compose these things with your groups. Have I missed anything out, Cassie?
No, I think that's it for this section. That was a surprise for me, your parrot and pirate book. I loved that. Let's have more of that in life in general. Thank you so much, B, and thank you, Miriam, for sharing those slides. We're now going to hand you over to Ben Sellers, who you may have seen on previous webinars, and he is going to talk about needs-based communication, which is a really great tool that Ben's introduced us all to. So yeah, hope you enjoy it.
Thank you, Cass. B, lovely, really interesting stuff. Hi, everyone. Lovely to see you all. Great to see some people that were here 2 webinars ago. Hopefully what we talk about today will build on some of that stuff as well. Miriam, could I have my slides up, please? So nonviolent, needs-based communication, which is what this is not nonviolent communication, which is what you may have come across in the past, but it is heavily influenced by it. But in the same way that music therapy is a what's the word, fenced subject, so is NVC. So that's my disclaimer before we start, that this isn't NVC, and hopefully it's tailored a bit more to our work as music leaders. Yeah, so I am really excited to share this because since I was introduced to it maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and it's really radically changed how I approach my teaching, but also my life in general, I suppose. So Miriam, could we have my slides up if possible? Fab. So what I would love by the end of this session is for everyone here to understand the potential of needs-based communication to support learning outcomes and behaviour management, and for some, maybe most people, to have a go at it after the session. So if we can move on to the next slide. So as I said, it's inspired by nonviolent communication, which is a system of communication developed by a guy called Marshall Rosenberg, an American in the 1960s, and it's since been exported all around the world. And the basic concept is that every action, every word, every movement, every revolution is an attempt to meet a need. And we've all humans have got the same needs, and we'll come on to what they might be in a second. Feelings, good feelings, bad feelings, are all in a way good because they help us understand what our needs are. So if we feel hungry, we know that we probably have a need to eat. Needs are always beautiful. If it's not beautiful, it's not a need. So for example, control is not a need. Relaxation is a need, and control might be an attempt to meet the need for relaxation. So needs are never in conflict. My need to contribute to your learning and your need to not listen to me, or your need for some calm without my voice, are not in conflict, but the strategies to meet them are. And crucially, by connecting with and valuing the needs of everyone in the session, so we're thinking now in our teaching, including our own, we can better support learning and enjoyment. And as an aside, if we feel like all of our needs are being met, generally the session is going well. Yeah, so it's easy for me to talk about this, but it's probably best if we try and experience it ourselves. So if we can move on to the next slide. If you don't require the captions and feel comfortable, I'd ask you to close your eyes, and you probably want to turn your cameras off at this point as well, if unless up to you really. And I'd like you to sit up nice and straight and relax your shoulders, relax your jaw. Take a deep breath in, and when you breathe out, just shake off everything that's happened in the day so far. And I'd like you to see how your heart's beating, if it's beating fast or slow or just kind of at rest. And I'd like you to see if you can think, what am I feeling right now? What am I feeling right now? You might take a second. So you might be feeling curious, and the need under that might be for learning and growth. You might feel calm because your need for safety is being met. You might be feeling elated because you've just seen someone on the camera that you haven't seen for many years, and you can't wait to text them afterwards and say hi. And that's probably your need for connection and community and your place in the world. You might be feeling wary. Maybe you've had a bad experience before doing something similar to this, and you maybe don't know me that well and haven't had the chance to trust me. And so that's your need for safety and trust and not being met at the moment. Perhaps you're irritated. Perhaps you're feeling bored. And the story behind that might be that I'm wasting your time with this. And that's kind of not a nice feeling, but underneath it's showing you that you've got a really good need for learning and inspiration and challenge. And that's why you came here, and those needs aren't being met at the moment. You might be feeling confused because you aren't really clear what I'm asking you to do. And again, that's quite an uncomfortable feeling, but underneath that is a very beautiful need for clarity and a need for understanding and a sense of belonging. Or it might be that you're feeling tired, and that's got nothing to do with the session, and you need rest, or you're feeling jubilant because you just got promoted, and your need for having your place and belonging is really being met. So just maybe check in for another second, and then when you feel free, when you're ready, shake it off again and turn your cameras back on. And yeah, sometimes I do this and I have got no idea what I'm feeling, you know. Can we have the next slide, please, Miriam? So hopefully that's just been a little demo of identifying feelings, which is hard in our society, in our very fast way of life, and to identify the needs underneath those feelings. So as adults, we have learned not to react to feelings. I can be in real severe discomfort or awkwardness, but I put this face on, you know, especially in our professional lives. And that's, you know, that provides a function and that meets other needs, doesn't it? But if we spend too much time there, we can sometimes forget about the feelings, and then we forget about the needs, and then it can bubble over. So young people, of course, aren't quite as disciplined to let their feelings be hidden, and so that can cause the challenging behaviour that can be a challenge to us in our sessions. So we're going to have a look at a couple more examples. I thought it fair enough for me to talk about my feelings. Now I've asked you to think about yours. So, you know, when I was preparing this, I always had different feelings from right now. When I was preparing this, I was feeling a kind of nervous excitement, I suppose. And the excitement comes from the need for challenge, to meet challenge, and to meet self-value and contribution and purpose in my professional life. But also the nervous is, well, you know, I'm going to know quite a lot of people here, and I don't want to lose their respect, for example. So that's a need for respect, and or my internet might cut out, or my batteries might run out. So that's, again, a need for contribution, and a need for clarity and emotional safety. Cool. All right. So now I've just got a need to check in that everyone's clear so far. So could you give me a thumbs up if you're with me so far? Fantastic. Okay. So now it's time for you to do some little bit hard work. Zoom cameras, it's a big discussion, a lot, I find. Teachers really like to have their pupils with their Zoom cameras on, but often pupils don't want to have their Zoom cameras on. And let's think about the needs there. So first of all, let's start with the teacher's needs. So on that slide, there's a big thing that says universal basic needs. And then this is according to Marshall Rosenberg, so the kind of nonviolent communication system. And they're in 7 different areas: physical well-being, which perhaps isn't so relevant to what we're looking at; harmony, connection, meaning and purpose, autonomy, honesty, and play. So these are the kind of 7 areas of needs. And then within that, there's lots of different words. And, you know, when we're talking about needs with young people, maybe we've just got quite a small set of vocabulary to talk about them. But, you know, as adults, we can think a bit more nuanced. So I'd like you to think for a second about what are the needs beneath teachers wanting pupils' cameras on online sessions. So in the chat, you can either just put the need, for example, clarity, or you could put the whole story. You know, they don't want kids to be looking at their phones, so they have a need for clarity or purpose. So if you could just put into the chat. So we've got control, non-verbal feedback, keep an eye on engagement. Hi, Ruth. Need for engagement, confirmation, connection. So, Anita, non-verbal feedback, that's a really interesting one. So I would say that non-verbal feedback is a strategy to meet a need. So what might be the need under that? I would say maybe the need for contribution, to see that what you're doing is landing well, for example, or a sense of purpose, or a sense of clarity. Check posture and energy. So maybe a need for community underneath that check posture and energy. So to see that everybody's feeling good, that again, that we're contributing. The weirdness of delivering into the void, says B. So again, that could be underneath that, the need for contribution and the need for clarity, because it is very weird when you don't know how what you're doing is landing. And a kind of emotional safety that no one else on the other side is totally frowning and not understanding. And what's really interesting that I can see B is smiling and nodding. So by identifying her need there, I can tell that I've figured out what the need is by her response. So now I can see if I can meet the need. So I could say, okay, B, maybe next time you can say to people, turn your cameras on at the beginning of the session, for example. So we're finding a different strategy to meet the need. Rosemary, to make sure they're not crying. Great, yours in there. So I would group a lot of these into this idea of contribution and reciprocity. Thanks, everyone. So now, can we think of reasons why students might not want their cameras on? And then if you look at that list, physical wellbeing, harmony, connection, meaning, autonomy, honesty, play, and the ones within that, what needs might your students be attempting to meet by not turning their camera on? Great, self-esteem. Exactly. So they might feel like they don't look good. So they want to kind of be safe from that. Choice, absolutely. Autonomy, independence, safety, acceptance, privacy, massive one. So a fear of being judged. So again, that would be emotional safety, I would say. Calmness, absolutely. Order, calm, and they're in there. And so once we realize these beautiful needs underneath a behavior that we find quite problematic, for me anyway, I stop being angry or frustrated with the person. And I'm like, they've just got a need for safety. That's great. Is there a way that I can find a different strategy to meet my need for contribution? I guess the camera gives you an option not to put on a face to the public. So that would, for me, Farhad, would be authenticity. You want to be authentic, and if you turn your camera on, you're going to have to be fake in some way. Again, authenticity, beautiful need. So even the most gross behavior, there's a beautiful need underneath. And the more extreme the behavior, the greater the need. The more extreme the behavior, the greater the need. And there's this story of the Dalai Lama's doctor got put in prison by the Chinese authorities for many, many years, and he got released, and he met the Dalai Lama, and the Dalai Lama said to him, did you feel fear when you were in prison? And the doctor says, yes, Your Holiness, I felt fear. And the Dalai Lama's like having a little bit of a laugh and a joke, and he's like, well, what were you scared of? And the doctor says, I was scared that I would lose compassion for my jailers. And so it's not about everyone meeting their needs all the time. It's about valuing everyone's needs equally. It's not about meeting everyone's needs all the time. If you've got children, you'll know that it's not possible to meet everyone's needs all the time. It's just not. But it's about valuing everybody's needs equally and becoming more skilled in our response. Next slide, please. So what on earth has this got to do with additional learning needs? Well, if a pupil is disengaged or displaying challenging behaviour, it's very likely, and I speak from personal experience only, that one or more of the following needs isn't being met. So basically, I've boiled down that last big list into this kind of shorter list. So emotional safety. So that's all around feeling embarrassed and feeling like they can't do something, feeling like a failure. So a lot of people who are refusing to do things are doing it because they have a deep, beautiful need for emotional safety. Clarity, they don't understand. They want to understand. And all the things that B and Cass were talking about is an attempt to meet the need for clarity in the young people. Fairness, it's not fair, miss. Great, of course it's, shut up, it's fair, don't worry. Actually, it's a need for fairness, beautiful need. Belonging, to be part of their class, not to be on the outside. And that's why, so for example, in a whole class ensemble situation, you've got a pupil who, for whatever reason, isn't able or has barriers to playing the violin. So we're thinking, okay, are we going to meet their need for belonging better by giving them a violin and they'd play one note? Or is it better, are they going to feel more belonging if we give them a drum so that they can actually hear themselves play and have autonomy? So all these decisions we can bring back to this idea of needs, and we can ask them, or we can look at their body language or what they're saying and kind of figure out. To be heard, understood. That's why solos are great. That's why conducting is great. Purpose, if they don't understand why they're doing something, why would they want to do it? Autonomy, play, and calm. And you can see even within this list, there's contradictions. Somebody's real desire to autonomously play the drums really loud is going to take away from another pupil's need for calm. So what strategies can we put in place to meet everybody's needs in the session at some point? And as I said earlier, pupils with additional needs are often less in control of their environment and less able to sit with unmet needs than their peers. Great, next slide, please. So we're going to have some time in breakout spaces. And we're going to go into groups of 4, and this, we want this to be as useful as possible to you. So we want to bring it back to real life and to situations that you're having with your pupils, or your partners or your children, if you can't think of anything for the classroom. So within the 4, I'd like one of the 4 to bring forward an example of lack of engagement or challenging behaviour that you've observed. So the example I've given here is that, yesterday I had a pupil that kept going off her task of practicing a GarageBand bass line. She said she wanted to play GarageBand bass line, but then she kept going off task. And then I'd like the group together to think, what do you guess that the feelings were? What do you guess that the feelings were? And B or Cass, it'd be great if we could get these questions into the chat, perhaps. What do you guess the feelings were underneath that? So I would guess that she was feeling bored, maybe confused, maybe a bit embarrassed that she couldn't, that she maybe couldn't do what I'd asked her to. And then what were the feelings, what were the needs, underneath the feeling? So under that confusion, there's a beautiful need for clarity, which we all have. Maybe there was a need for autonomy to play what she wanted to play instead of what I was telling her to. And underneath embarrassment is often a need for emotional safety. So once you've identified the needs, what could you, as the leader, help the pupil do to help the pupil meet the need in a different way? And you're doing this all the time. You're all probably experts at needs-based communication, but sometimes it's good to figure out what we don't know we know. So here I've given the example of, if she's not hearing herself properly, that could lead to the boredom and the lack of clarity. So we could give her some headphones. We could give her a simpler part. We could pair her up with another pupil. We could check she still wants to play this instrument. Or if it's autonomy that she's lacking, we could encourage her to write her own bass line. Does anyone not understand the kind of task? If you don't understand, I'm really happy to go through it again. If you just put in the chat, if you don't understand. Okay, great, fab. So we're going to spend around 10 minutes in breakout rooms. Well, we're going to spend 10 minutes in breakout rooms. So hopefully feel free to just go into one for 10 minutes, or you might want to try 2 or 3. If you require signing or captioning, please stay in this room where the captioner and the sign and Rachel will stay. If not, please go into the breakout rooms. If any of your needs are not being met by going into the breakout rooms, maybe this is overwhelming, and underneath that is a need for emotional safety, clarity, calm. Feel free to go into the breakout rooms and just tell people how you're feeling, and maybe identify a need underneath it. That would be fabulous. And if you really don't want to do it, that's also fine. So let's go into the breakout rooms for 10 minutes, and we'll come back at 5 o'clock. I'm just going to put the list of needs in the chat. Great. Okay. Hi, Andy. Are you there?
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I'm here.
Great. Would you like to join a breakout room, or do you require the captioner or the signer?
No, I'm fine. I can join the breakout room.
Fab.
I was just answering another call. I'm doing multitasking here.
No worries. No worries. Don't. You meet your need for contribution and value. Crack on.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, Miriam.
Hi. That was so good. Good. Would you like to join a breakout room or anything, or just let me know if you want me to put you?
I thank you. I can join my own if I want to. I'm just looking through the chat.
Okay, beautiful.
Welcome back, everyone. We'll just wait for the other groups. Here they are. Welcome back, everyone. So back to the Zoom thing, one trick is that if you send people to breakout rooms, they tend to turn the cameras on, and then you bring them back into the main room and their cameras are still on, and then you got them. So that my need for contribution is being met right now. Thanks, everyone. Fascinating to just pop into the groups and hear what's going on. One thing I do want to say is, there's a lot of talk about balancing the different needs in the room, and it's worth remembering that we live in a world that is far from perfect, and teaching 30 kids violin for half an hour a week in one room with a huge variety of different needs is not the perfect situation. So we work within the constraints of society, but as a sector and as a group of practitioners, we can always also be explaining to the people that create the framework within which we work why things need to be changed. And if we can talk about it in terms of needs, then it's a very compelling argument. Great. Okay, so it would be fantastic to hear some feedback on the chats that were going on. Did anyone have any really interesting breakthroughs where they sort of gave something to the group, or someone gave something to the group, and you really figured out, that's the need there? Would any group like to feed a little bit back about that? Either in the chat, or if you feel free to turn your mic on and speak.
I think on our group, it was about implementing the pictures or the signs on the board as you went in, so the people who had the special needs knew what the structure of the actual lesson or the actual activity was going to be. Because in our sample was somebody who'd gone off to the back of the room and weren't really engaging, and it was why they wasn't engaging, and perhaps it's because it was overload. They had the special needs, so they couldn't cope with the changes. So if we actually put it in the pictures or on a board somewhere, say, okay, this is how we're moving through each one, it gave them a more understanding. And if we got them to do it, they would then have almost like ownership of their own lesson, their own structure.
Fantastic. That's really, really good practical stuff. From group 4 in the chat, we've got Jen's example: participant on phone in session tries calling because can see it's there. So she tried calling the phone. Looking at the phone is a good crutch, makes you look busy, can't get it wrong if you don't try. Phone is a barrier. Needs for connection and looking for information, need to try and get connection from that. Safety and calm is a need. Online might be really uncomfortable. Sense of safety, seeking attention. So phones, are meeting so many of our needs, but it's so annoying when someone else is on them when we're trying to talk to them. So, my thought process, if someone is on their phone and I'm talking to someone and they just slowly asleep into their phone, is like, okay, this person, I'm not meeting this person's needs at the moment, or this person isn't meeting their needs by talking to me. They're choosing safety and connection from their phone. So how about my needs? Well, actually, my friends that spend loads of time on their phone, I probably don't want to hang out with them as much, which is really sad. But probably I'm going to meet my need for connection more if I'm not with this person. And so I'm finding a different strategy to meet that need. And yet it's really sad in some ways. But they're on their phone, they're meeting their needs, and I'm talking to someone else and I'm meeting my needs. But obviously we can't necessarily do that in a teaching situation. Are there any other kind of breakthroughs or anything that was completely intractable that you would like to bring to the bigger group? Okay. Does anyone have any other scenarios they would like to put past a bigger group? Does anyone feel like this is all really doesn't make any sense and is wrong? Because it would be lovely to unpack that a little bit. I'd be really up. Hi, Fahad.
Oh yeah, sorry, I put my camera on for this bit. Sorry. No, I just when you said other scenarios, it's interesting. I often forget the visual communication board thing. But I guess I just had the only example I could remember right now of when I was in a classroom was is about finding tasks that meet needs. So I had a pupil that wasn't engaging, and I realized that they love technology, and I guess there's a need for like a tactile, practical doing that he wasn't necessarily getting from his instruments. But what I found was setting up microphones around the room was a solution, and the sort of the connection in the room, because it was a very small group, got better when absolutely everyone had something they enjoyed doing in that. And I guess in terms of inclusive communication, the sort of jam and the musical communication got better when there's different sort of tasks within it. So there's playing, there's jamming, there's instruments, there's singing, but there's also tech involved in that one.
Yeah, brilliant. And it sounds like you were meeting lots of different needs throughout the session for the different participants.
Yeah, I was lucky that it was a small group. But yeah, I guess what I remembered from that, because it was a small group, the need for belonging was there. So if one or two people weren't engaged, the feeling in the room was gone.
Yeah, exactly.
Engagement.
So that's a really brilliant example, because you've brought up their belonging, which has got nothing to do with music or music making necessarily, but is crucial. And actually, if we can leave our sessions with people feeling like they belong, who didn't previously feel like they belong, wow, what an amazing thing we've done, you know? Yeah, so thank you, Fahad. Create music, the strapline is breaking down disabling barriers to music. You could turn that around and say, what we're all doing as practitioners with pupils with additional needs is identifying needs and supporting them to be met in the context of music making. Miriam, could I have the presentation back up, please? I've just got a couple of minutes left, and I want to meet B and Cass's need for good use of time and calm. So I'm going to move to my last slide. And this is homework for you all. If I've met my own aim to help you understand how needs-based communication could be used within your practice, and my other aim of thinking you might like to develop it a bit more, my suggestion would be, as a homework, when you find yourself feeling negative emotions, try and identify the unmet need underneath it. And if you need to carry around a list of needs, great. Is there another way that you can meet the need? And I've just got a quote from, hold on. Yeah, a quote from Viktor E. Frankl. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. So between something happening and how you respond to it, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So another way to say that would be, in between action and reaction lies freedom. And so what we're doing each time you go through this potentially long process of feeling negative emotions and identifying the unmet needs, you're building up the muscle and the language. So you can say, it's a need for safety. It's a need for clarity. It's a need for calm. It's a need for fairness. And as you start to do it to yourself, you'll be able to do it to the young people you work with. You'll be able to do it to your children, your partners, your friends, your enemies, Donald Trump, whoever it might be. So that's thing number one. There's loads of great videos by Marshall Rosenberg on YouTube who explains it and gives, loads of really compelling examples. And also, if I love talking about this stuff, I don't know if you can tell, but my email is bensellers@drakemusic.org. There is a weekly, it's called Mindful Communication session, where we just kind of, it's a longer version of what you did in the panel discussion. It's not led by me, it's led by someone else, but that's great for practice. Yes, I think that's it. So could we just have that last slide, please, Miriam? Sorry, I've updated it since then. So to meet my needs for contribution and community and clarity, could you put into the chat a need that has been met in this session? Put into the chat a need that has been met in this session, or a need that has not been met in this session. So maybe you didn't learn anything, so your need for learning has not been met. And if you could just be clear about what's not been met. So not met, whatever it might be, or if you just put them in need, I'm going to assume it's been met. And it is always interesting to hear needs that aren't met as well. We've got learning, connection. Fantastic. Steve says met connection, not met a brew. And the questions you asked about control and Buddhism, Steve, I'll have to answer another time because we don't have time for that. I'm sure we will. Great. Okay, thanks everyone. My name is Ben Sellers@drakemusic.org. Love to hear from you, and I'll pass you back to Cass and B.
Thanks so much, Ben. It's great, super interesting, feeling much more zen now after thinking about need and meeting them and everything else that we discussed just then. We have just a couple of things just to round up now. I hope you've all also been thinking about what your sign is for today. Maybe it's different now than it was at the beginning of the session, but I would really invite us all now to demonstrate what our sign is. So Cass and I will once more sing the song, What's Your Sign Today? And at the end of it, please, if you feel like it with your camera on, do demonstrate your sign or type it in the chat if you don't want to be dramatic on camera. All right, are you ready, Cassie? Give me a starting note, please.
What's 1, 2, 3, and
what's your sign today? What's your sign today? I'll watch and learn from you. Let's see your signs, people. Give us your signs. Oh, same to you, Anita. Oh, wow, amazing. That was fun. Thanks so much, everyone. We've also got one final piece of admin to do, which is, Rose, Caroline, stop. The love is beautiful, feeling it here. We've also got a survey to pop in the chat for you now. We'd be really grateful if you could fill this out. Thanks so much, Miriam. Ace tech support today. Thank you so much. Yeah, please do fill out our survey, give us some tips. We'd love to learn and develop what we're doing. We've got one more webinar coming up in this series that's open. Cass, have you got the date for that?
It's on the 17th of June at 4 p.m. It is called Getting into Music Tech in the Classroom. And we've got two of our DM associates, we've got Michael Dolan and Caro Churchill. They're going to be showing you their favourite tech options to use within the classroom, a mixture of hardware and software. So it'll be a bit of an interactive / demo session. So please do join us if you can for that one. We also have, if you haven't joined up already, we have our Inclusive Music Teachers Facebook group where we post a lot about the events that we're doing, things that are going on in the sector. So it's really good to sign up and join our group if you.
Oh, Cassie's just accidentally muted herself there. So yeah, good to sign up to the Facebook there if you're looking for tips and tricks and places to share your ideas and get inspiration from other practitioners. Ellen's just asking in the chat about the recording. We can share it with anyone that was late. Apologies if you didn't get an update. We did send it out several times with the link, but there may have been something funny with Eventbrite. So apologies if you didn't receive your link in a timely manner. But just remains for us to say thank you so much for giving your time. Thank you, indeed. We should sign it. Thank you. And the more people that can start doing this on Zoom, the better, because if you do it to a group that don't know, then it looks like you're sending everyone big kisses, which is nice, you know, it's inclusive and lovely, but perhaps not appropriate everywhere. So thank you, everyone. Please get in touch if we can do anything else to help, and looking forward to see you at our next webinar. So thank you, everyone, and have a lovely evening. Bye. Goodbye.